Okay, so for those who are joining your first project overview, we use the chat function Q&A, so feel free as we go through slides to put through questions. And Cole, if you want to give a brief overview of how this works, but I'll let you give it to him, but I just want to make sure folks use the chat and the Q&A function.
Certainly, yes. Go ahead and please drop any questions in the chat here. We'll collect them. Please note that our questions will have to be posted online for our guidelines, but we will anonymize them, so we won't say who they're from or release any company names in there. You'll also be welcome to email projectcall@americamakes.us, which is listed in the RFP. That comes directly to me, and we can catalog your questions that way.
Excellent. All right, Cole, any other housekeeping items before we get started?
Nothing more on my end. Take it away.
Okay, excellent. Well, again, good morning, everyone. My name is Ben DeMarco. I'm the Technology Transition Director at America Makes. Along with me today, I wanted to give a brief introduction to Mr. Evan Handler and Mr. Kyle Cobb. So if you could just briefly introduce yourself, Evan and Kyle, and then we'll move forward.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Evan Handler, based out of Naval Surface Warfare Center Carderock Division in West Bethesda, Maryland. I am the Government Chief Technology Advisor for America Makes. Happy to have everybody on this call today as we introduce the CATACS program. Looking forward to questions, discussion, hopefully seeing some great proposals come out of this. Over.
Thank you, Evan. Mr. Cobb, could you go next?
All right. Thanks, Evan. Thanks, Ben. So good morning, everyone. My name is Kyle Cobb. I'm currently serving as the Deputy Chair for the Joint Additive Manufacturing Working Group, or JAMWIG, that is led out of OUSW R&E's Manufacturing Technology Office. And in the capacity of this particular program, I am the funding sponsor. So like Evan said, happy to see that there's over 50 people on the line and looking forward to reviewing the proposals. Thanks, Ben.
Excellent. All right, so I'm going to kind of man the slides and go through here as we go through the overview. So I'll give the overview of the program. As Evan mentioned, this is called CATACS, Corrosion of Additive Tested at Component Scale. There was someone that asked yesterday, how do you pronounce it? Again, it's not CATACS, it's CATACS. Okay, the background. So AM materials can differ from conventionally manufactured materials, and in some ways they can impact corrosion performance. This is not limited to microstructure, composition, surface roughness, and for this reason, additive components could require additional or independent qualification to ensure reliability in different service environments. Some of these corrosion mechanisms strongly dependent on part-specific or application-specific factors such as geometry, coatings, working fluids, service temperatures, pressure, environments, joining methods, how the component or feature is put into service, if it's with other materials, and how they interact. So these factors often cannot be adequately captured at the coupon level and will require some representative geometry or, when possible, full-scale components that can help produce more meaningful and impactful results. I think that you'll hear as we go through this, again, an important note, proposers should put together a plan that not only looks at coupon level, but ensures or shows in a representative geometry. Currently, corrosion data for AM materials is limited or potentially behind IP or paywalls. So industry has little experience with the component scale corrosion testing of additive components. And right now, there are no widely accepted frameworks to determine when and what corrosion testing is required for AM parts. So CATACS CATACS looks to address this gap by supporting projects that develop, validate, and demonstrate testing frameworks to evaluate additive corrosion behavior in realistic environments. This framework is going to help for evaluate and determine corrosion testing needs and generate a data set or multiple data sets that can be applied to common families of metal AM parts with similar or related corrosion performance requirements. All metal AM modalities are considered in scope for proposals. At this time, polymer AM, and we'll go in a bit more of others, polymer AM is considered out of scope. Topic 1 is looking at corrosion of AM components at elevated temperature. So just a sentence here, there's more in the RFP that you can go read, but basically we're looking for proposers to demonstrate corrosion performance of AM components requiring elevated temperature capability, and again, very important that they're in representative environments beyond lab air, considering pressure vessel conditions, fuel to air mixtures, differing surface exposures, and potential metallurgical interactions with the adjacent components. Topic 2 is focusing on corrosion of additive components used for thermal management. Proposers should put forward a proposal that demonstrates corrosion performance of metal AM thermal management components, focusing on interactions between AM microstructure and one or more working fluids under varying thermal conditions across these complex geometries and flow paths, flow channels. A few more bullet points on topic 1. So looking for corrosion performance of AM components at elevated temperature with representative service conditions, high pressure, fueled air mixtures, combustion atmospheres, oxidizing and reducing environments. Looking to address pressure vessel and hot gas components such as combustor liners, turbine blades, or housings, where internal and external surfaces may experience different conditions simultaneously. These are a couple examples, but again, we're leaving it to the proposers to put forth their components for this project call. Evaluate surface-specific degradation mechanisms. So this is, what is actually going to happen, such as hot corrosion, oxidation, carburization, and sulfidation. Teams should look at examining the metallurgical interactions at the boundaries where dissimilar materials, alloys, coatings, or varying conditions exist. This could include performance and/or degradation of environmental barrier coatings or thermal barrier coatings on additive produced material. This next bullet point, looking at the influence of AM-induced microstructures and post-processing effects, HIP, coatings, machining, and the impacts that may have on corrosion susceptibility. Next one is if there are ways to introduce computational models, CFD corrosion coupling, to predict degradation under varying conditions. The proposing teams, if they're going to include this, should provide a background on the operating environment and a detailed plan for how the model will either be built or developed and how the accuracy will be validated. Again, end goal is that the data sets are applicable to high temperature AM part families, supporting durability predictions and qualification standards. Topic 2, these again a focus on corrosion performance in the thermal management components that are exposed to one or more working fluids, such as fuels, water glycol, or other advanced coolants. We would like to understand the impact of thermal gradients in fluid flow conditions, such as turbulence, stagnation zones, and thin wall features. investigating localized corrosion mechanisms, including pitting, crevice corrosion, erosion corrosion, and galvanic corrosion inside the flow passages. What are the influence of AM-specific features? I mentioned this at the beginning: surface roughness due to the process, porosity, anisotropy. My language today. Anisotropic. Can't get it out. You guys know what I'm trying to say. Anisotropy on fluid material interactions. Evaluate performance of coated versus uncoated surface, where protective films or barrier coatings are expected in service. Again, similar comment to above. We included this for both of them in where there are opportunities to develop or validate computational models to predict degradation under the varying conditions. Similar to the topic 1 is proposals that when they do this should include background, again, on the operating environment and a detailed plan for how the model development or accuracy will be validated. And then the project teams, again, with the components they choose and the testing that they do, they must then generate data sets applicable or around AM heat exchangers and other thermal management components. We did include some out-of-scope activities, and I believe one question may have already come in around this, specifically around materials. But again, this effort is not focused on new material or alloy development. Teams must use materials which are already considered mature for the chosen process. Again, if a proposal is just looking at coupons, that's not the goal of this effort. Coupon level studies may be included as a part of their broader framework and are encouraged, but proposals limited to coupons only without components or component scale testing or representative geometry will not be considered. Any activities unrelated to corrosion performance. So if you couldn't tell by the first few, this effort is solely around corrosion performance. Broader topics outside to AM process development, productivity, or cost modeling without a clear link to corrosion would not be considered. Non-metallic AM systems. So again, I think we already received one question on this, but proposals focused on polymer, ceramic, or composite at this time are not being considered. Again, I mentioned we already received one question, but I would encourage others to submit your questions. If you have out-of-scope questions, we can still work to answer those. And again, foreign activity, we'll go into a bit more on eligibility, but execution of activities outside of the U.S. and RESANT in this project are considered out of scope. Cognitive engineering authority, this is encouraged. So proposal teams are encouraged to include a member with cognitive engineering authority, CEA. I've heard this term in the AMS community potentially called CEO. This could also maybe be known as design authority or a lead systems integrator for the selected component. So if they have authority or they produce a part that they own the design or are in control of how the product is designed and matured, those people, organizations, companies are encouraged to be a member of the proposing team. They should have knowledge of the selected component that would be validated in a printable design of a material system that is mature for the AM process. And again, the maturity of the components and the material system should be explained by the proposal team and a linkage with DoD relevance in mind. So if maybe you're coming from another industry where corrosion is impactful or can degrade performance, proposal teams should consider how it is linked to DoD relevance. Teams are encouraged to leverage existing coupon level corrosion data, collaborate with related America Makes or government efforts. So if it's past efforts or parallel efforts, make note of those, and incorporate when possible, computational corrosion modeling to inform, validate, or expand testing regimes. We did put this in, so there is opportunity for mechanical testing that can be leveraged through the FAST Center, Future Alloy Study and Testing, when feasible and practical. So funding, there's 2 topics. Each of these topics have a max federal award amount of $650,000. There's 1 award per topic, and proposers are to include a cost share of 50%. The maximum technical period of performance is 18 months with an additional 3 months of reporting, so a max POP of 21 months to be proposed. And then again, shorter period of performances and less dollars are considered acceptable. So if folks would like to submit something that is less period of performance or less dollar amount, though, that would be considered. Set of dates. So we announced this project call last week on the 7th. We're here today for the industry day on the 16th. And the responses, I'm seeing a little bit of a misnomer here. So our questions from proposers, and Cole, I don't know if you can update this on the fly, are due for a week from today. I'm going to come back to this slide. Cole, if you can go in and edit that slide, it looks like there's a mistake on the schedule there. We'll go back to the schedule in a minute, but the eligibility for membership and cost share. So the lead proposers should be an America Makes member in good standing, paid in full by November 20th. So Zane is on. If you have membership questions at the end, we can answer those. Project team members are not required to be America Makes members, but are highly encouraged to do so. And there are specific information on how to join America Makes membership. So Zane, did you want to come off mute? Do you want to share anything more on the membership side of things?
Yeah, real quick. So when we say a member in good standing and paid in full, if you've been a member for more than a year, this does not really apply to you as you are a member in good standing. But where this really comes into play is for those that have just joined within the last year and have utilized the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, to become members. And with that MOU, to be a member in good standing, paid in full, means that you would have had to, at the point of the deadline there, applied for or covered your dues through a cash contribution or cost share. So hopefully that gives a little bit of clarity to any of you. And if anybody has any questions on their membership status, they can shoot a note to membership@americamakes.us. Happy to let you know.
Thanks, Cole. Or Zane, appreciate that. Yeah, I think if you have questions on membership, just make sure they get submitted and or asked. It's better to ask up front if you're unsure. I think that's the big thing. I would like to encourage folks to ask questions early and often. So membership questions, different email, membership@americamakes. All right, so Cole updated the dates, so I'm just going to go back to the schedule slide. Project call announcement was last week on the 7th. The questions are due from proposers by October 23rd. And then the responses for the questions come about a week after, so October 30th. If your proposal requires an NDA, those NDAs must be submitted and in agreement by the 19th. So if you have a proposal that has proprietary information, we request that you start the NDA process soon so it can be completed by the 19th. We have done this in the past, so if you have something that is proprietary to your business, please make note of that. And the day after that, the deadline for a lead proposer to be a America Makes member, so that is required. They can be paid in full by November 20th. The submission date is December 2nd at 5 p.m., no later than 5 p.m. And then this date has been updated since the original announcement. So the anticipated decision notification to proposal teams, it was January 6th. It will now be January 21st. Okay, I see some of the questions coming in on the chat. We'll get to the Q&A at the end, but please keep questions coming. We'll get to them at the end. So eligibility. Cole, did you want to share anything? You want to go over this slide?
Yep. So the biggest thing with this is what's outlined in bold here. We just follow CFR 126.1, I believe it is, where if you have either team members or PIs that are from the following countries on here, they will not be approved to work on the project. So just ensure that your project team, if you're using any type of foreign national, that they are not from any of the countries listed on this list.
Okay. Yeah, and section 3.3, page 17 in the RFP has all of the eligibility requirements. For the industry day, we try to give the high points, but yeah, this is an important one that often gets overlooked. We put it in bold for that reason. So if there are foreign nationals on the project, they must be reported in advance, and even if they're added after the project, they must be approved. They can't just start participating. So these are made bold for a reason. Please make sure you check these out and reference page 17 of the RFP. Other important notes is the lead proposer is responsible for the project and the subcontract performance. The U.S. proposer must be registered in SAM and have a cage code and UEI number before submitting a proposal. There is a membership agreement, so you are required when you submit to have your membership agreement in place. So make note of this, and yeah, any additional arrangements are identified or disclosed at the time of proposal. Deliverables and reporting. There is a long list, but we try to put the minimum set of deliverables on page 14 of the RFP, and the requirements for reporting are on page 30. The executive summary is not scored, but it's considered part of the overall value proposition of the proposal. The tech approach and methodology is 30% of the score. Data management plan is 20%. Technology dissemination to America Makes members and its impact, so the project's impact or transition to the Department of Defense is 30% of the score. Program management report is 20%, and cost not scored but considered a part of the overall value proposition of the proposal. Teaming. Zane, do you want to go ahead with this slide?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've tried to find ways to be an unbiased convener of our members and project proposers. So we've come up with a teaming page that is accessible for both non-members and members to essentially raise their hand and say that I want to participate in the project and I want to participate from this perspective. Anybody can submit on these. If you go to the project call page where you read about or download the RFP and read about the project, you'll see the screen there on the right that has the Team Up button. If you click on that, that'll pull up a little form with contact info for you to fill out, and contact info and your capabilities and what you bring to the table for this project, and also what you're looking for. As a member, Ben, if you can go to the next page, all of those submissions that are made will be stored in our member portal. So if you log into the member portal and you go to the toolbar at the top that shows benefits, you can go to the teaming tool page and you'll be able to download any of the all of the submissions that have been made for not only the current projects, but any past projects. So if there's a certain role that you're looking for, or if you're looking for somebody to be the lead proposer, or you're looking for somebody to be on the team to fill a testing role, a printing role, a material role, go ahead and check out the teaming tool and find those submissions. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly or membership@americanmakes.us, and I'm happy to help.
Yeah, thanks, Zane. I appreciate that. This is somewhat new. I think it's been around for the last 2 or 3 project calls. Is that correct, Zane?
Yeah, it started with the QTime project call, so this I think is the 5th one.
Okay. Yeah, I've had a couple people reach out to me about this, and again, Zane's the right person to ask specifically about the membership side of things. So if there are questions on teaming, use that membership email and/or reach out to Zane directly. So just want to encourage that and appreciate you, Zane, sharing an overview. Okay, so last few slides here, executive summaries must contain information that are publicly releasable, non-proprietary information. And the reason for this is we go through and American Makes goes through a public release process for award announcement. So sometimes that executive summary is used or pieces of it, and it's ultimately to demonstrate the impact and merits of these efforts to the public. No fee is allowed. The cover page should include the UEI and the CAGE code for at least the team lead or the lead proposer. And there are ways that teams can submit additional information to help with contracting, such as the subrecipient agreement ahead of time. If you have requested changes, those can be sent in with the proposal. And this last one is no response certifies agreement is upon award. Questions? Yeah, thank you all for those that put questions in the chat. Cole, do you want to read them off or just go down the list of the questions?
Certainly. So our first one here is, can additive design variation in corrosion performance study be considered for topic 2?
Additive design variation. So maybe if you can, whoever asked the question, if you can expand a bit more, are you suggesting design for additive, or if you're comparing the design of an additive component back to a conventional component? I want to make sure I understand the question correctly.
Yeah, it is additive design. So basically looking at DFAM activities and how that can help the optimization of corrosion performance.
Oh, how it can help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Evan, I'll let you, if you have any thoughts. My initial thought is I don't see any reason why that would be considered out of scope. But I think, again, as we mentioned at the beginning, it's important to share relevance or the reason why you're studying the design or why you believe the design is important and how that variation can't impact corrosion. That's how I would answer it. But Evan, any other thoughts? If not, we can make sure this gets posted with a more detailed reply.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at, if the question is, are there things when we have defammed heat exchangers where the corrosion results or corrosion simulation, corrosion expectations, we would need to take additional considerations of how to account for corrosion in those sorts of applications. I think including that as the part of the proposal would be in scope. A straight study on the use of DFAM for increasing heat exchanger performance, thermal management performance under this is not what we're looking for outside of the scope of corrosion. So in that regard, we would prefer a more mature design to already be being leveraged.
Yeah. Thanks, Evan. I agree. Okay. If we didn't answer your question fully, please expand on it in the chat. We can come back to it. Cole, do you want to go to the next one?
Yeah. So where can people find more information on the FAST facility and their specific capabilities?
Understand. Okay, great. So we put a hyperlink in the RFP, and then we'll get this posted in the Q&A next week, where there's a link to the actual capabilities. So we didn't include that, but we can point proposers to that.
All right.
Yeah, it's a public-private partnership. The FAST facility is, and it's managed by Scott Forge. Scott Forge manages the FAST facility, but again, we'll put information and additional contact information for the facility and capabilities in the Q&A. Thanks, Scott. Next question.
All right. Could you comment on the temperature range that is considered high temperature for topic 1?
Good question. I think this is one that we probably will, Evan, and I'll let you comment on it. We probably put a more detailed reply in the official response. But I would say this is probably material dependent. It could be material dependent. But Evan, I didn't know if you want to expand on that or if you have an immediate answer. If not, we'll get back to this one within a week.
Yeah, we don't have an explicit temperature range we would be looking for. High temperature is relative, obviously, to the material being used and the specific of the application. So we will no, there's not an explicit temperature range we're looking for. We will defer to the proposers to include details of the range they're targeting and why.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Next question.
All right. So cost share is also applied to our membership. Does this mean that membership is not required when applying for this, or that we can use it for next year's membership? So I can talk a little bit about that. First of all, we have listed in the RFP and the eligibility criteria all that's required. You are required to be a member, paid in full to apply for this project call, or to be considered for this project call. Again, I encourage you to go look at the within the RFP for more detail of what that entails.
And then I can jump in just to follow up on the latter part of that question. So the cost share that so if you're a member paid in full, that means you've renewed or paid for your membership within the last 12 months, essentially. So if you are in good standing and you accumulate cost share from this project, then that cost share will go towards your renewal for the year following the year that it was incurred. So if you were awarded this project and you incur $15,000 of cost share over the next 12 months, then this $15,000 of cost share would go towards that next renewal. Hopefully that clarifies it for you.
Yeah, and I would just encourage folks on the call, Zane, if you can put the email in the chat if there are specific questions on this, because this does come up, and there is, for especially people that are new to the process, they have questions. So I would encourage you to contact membership to get a further detailed information on this, because what we don't want to have happen is you don't get this answered, or you're not clear on this, and then you submit, and then you're considered not eligible. So I think that's the most important thing from my perspective.
And I just saw a question come through for sort of an immediate follow-up to that. It is any membership level, could be silver, gold, or platinum, just so long as you are paid in full.
Before we move on, there was a question on the environment and the high temperature range. So there is some details specifically on page 9 of the RFP that goes into both the coupon level screening, the representative testing at nominal conditions, representative testing at extreme or worst case conditions. And as Evan mentioned, it's really on the proposal team of how they should outline the criticality of the component and the relevant service conditions. And you must provide substantive evidence or knowledge of the environment. This could be whether it's a subject matter expert or someone on your project team who, is the design lead of that component, but ultimately it's up to the proposers on how that is submitted. So I didn't want to jump around, but I wanted to go back to that temperature range question. Again, that's on page 9 of the RFP in an overview of the description and technical approach. So that's in relevance to what is considered high temperature. Next question.
All right, so will a subaward be allowed? And if allowed, any eligibility restriction on the subaward?
Cole, do you want to just go ahead and answer this plainly?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably have our contracting team give a direct answer on this, Ben, but.
Yeah, simply the project lead can have subawards. And there are some certain, like the subawards must follow the same eligibility requirements that are outlined. So we'll put an official response to this, but the simple answer to the question is yes, subawards are allowed. It is the lead proposer's responsibility to manage those subawards. I'm just going to reshare my screen. So this is what we covered on slide 11. So first of all, for the person who asked the question, section 3.3 covers all of the information on eligibility. First bullet point, the lead proposer is fully responsible for the project and subcontract performance. And then again, these bold points, anyone on the team must follow these rules. It's not just the lead, it's everyone on the team. That's why they're in bold. Over. Next question.
Is artificial intelligence, machine learning considered a valid modeling computational component for these topics of corrosion prediction? If they already have a tested corrosion database and machine learning code, how can the IP be handled under this contract?
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slide that I shared on this. So just give me 1 second. Okay. So I think I want to try to answer this as directly as possible. Whatever the model that you're using, again, it has to have relevant background and operating environment information. So, and again, as Evan mentioned at the beginning, and we've kind of stressed on this, it has to have linkage or DoD relevance to specific components or environment. So I think that's the important part, number one. How that model is created, or if it is already created, that we would leave that up to the proposers. And if you've already tested the, I'll say, fidelity of the model or how the model works, and it is considered background IP, Cole can confirm the exhibit, but there is an exhibit in the RFP that you can complete and state background IP. So if you've already created something before you came to this project, you just have to disclose it as background IP. Cole, can you confirm the exhibit number for background IP?
Exhibit 1, identification of background intellectual property.
Yeah. And lastly, if this is considered IP and you want to propose on it, again, that goes back to the first point about if you need an NDA in place before you submit. But at the bottom line, we're not going to try to control what model you use or how you use it or what tools you use to create your model. It just has to have sufficient background information on the environment, and then ultimately how that model development or accuracy is going to be validated. Evan, Kyle, anything additional to add to that? I know that's kind of a complex one when it comes into IP, but anything you wanted to state on that for the model for computation of corrosion prediction?
No, on the IP, I think you answered it better than I could, and the formal response will have all of the right information. As far as the suitability of AI ML, if you have a model or think you have enough data to train said model, I believe yes, it would be considered in scope. I'll leave it at that. I am by no means an AI ML expert, so.
Yeah.
Right, and I'll just chime in. Well said, Ben and Evan. I think that first bullet on the actual RFP is important here, right? We need to demonstrate the corrosion performance of the AM components before that model is generated. So we'll need to ensure that there's sufficient data. And then if that data is IP, it needs to be flagged appropriately. Over.
Perfect. Thank you both. Okay. If we didn't answer your question fully, just expand on it in the chat. We'll go on to the next one though. Cole, go ahead.
All right, so we have I saw in the proposal that it should include component level corrosion testing in real conditions. So they want to know, is that like fixturing, bolting, or other joining methods, or light components such as combustor liners, turbine blades, or housings?
Okay, good question. Thank you. I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute and checking the RFP because I know there's a specific page number that this is called out. Okay, so yes, it's on page number 9 of the RFP. We give some background information for the representative testing. I think the answer to your question is it could be both. So it depends on the component and the environment that it is being used. So if it is fixtured or if it is joined, that should be stated, number one. And then if it's a different topic, like you mentioned, if it's a liner or maybe a coating on a blade or something else, that should also be shared. And if it is either the relevant component or a model or a representative geometry of the component, that should be shared or explain how the proposer would address that with the component. So I think my simple answer is it's both. It just really depends on the actual application that you're proposing. So we wanted to leave it open for the proposals to be creative and in their approach. So hopefully that answered your question. Evan or Kyle, any additional information you'd like to add on that?
Yeah, I think what we're looking for is that the corrosion performance itself, the factors that impact how the part would experience corrosion are simulated. I don't believe that needs to be in all cases the exact get to the system level. As far as, I'll use a valve as an example. If you're testing the impeller, the valve body doesn't need to be exactly to the spec. It can be relatively representative to the point that it does still simulate performance with respect to corrosion.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, and apologies for the background noise. There's some emergency or something going on outside. I apologize for that. I've turned on noise suppression, so hopefully it's better now. Yes, Kyle, fire truck and other things. So, okay. But great question. I really appreciate that question, whoever asked it. I think it's really important for proposers to consider that, whatever the environment is for the specific component that they're proposing, should be outlined. I'll foot stomp at that, and that's what we're looking for, right? We're really looking for you, as that top bullet point said, demonstrate corrosion performance on AM components. It's in the title of the RFP, so really that's kind of the foot stomp point, is make sure that environment's made clear and the conditions are accurate. All right, Cole, next question.
So that is all the questions, I believe, in the chat here. I am going to just throw the project call email in the chat here in a minute. Just a reminder that any questions you have down the line will need to be emailed to that email by October 23rd. After that, we will not be able to accept any more technical questions. But just as a note, we will be able to answer any programmatic or submission-based questions after that deadline. And again, this email will come directly to my inbox, and I'll get in touch with Ben and Evan and Kyle to get these answered, including the ones here today we'll have listed in our questions as well.
Yeah, and I will echo that. What Cole said, get your questions in by October 23rd. A lot of people try to ask questions after that. We have to draw a line in the sand. So tell your friends if they have questions, submit them, and we'll answer them. But they must be submitted by October 23rd. Anyone else before we end the industry day here? Any other questions from those that are still on?
Ben, just a real quick comment on that. Again, stressing everybody, we need records of these questions, so please email them. I've had people call me directly, and all I'm going to be able to do is push you to that email. So just a side note.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Cole. I'll put it in the chat one more time with a hyperlink. Click that email if you have a question, submit it formally. It gets put into a database, and we work with our government team and the customer to answer those questions. Again, deadline is the 23rd. But if not, thank you all for attending. Thanks for the good questions. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Evan and Kyle, as well, for being on to support. We appreciate that. If there's no other questions, though, Cole, I'll leave it to you to wrap us up.
Yes, everybody, thanks so much for joining us here today. Again, cannot stress enough, please go in, read the RFP in its entirety. Before you pose your questions, before you think about applying, definitely please dive into that RFP. We encounter many situations where questions that are asked could have been answered by reading the RFP, and also proposals that are submitted that are completely out of scope. So again, cannot stress enough, please read the RFP in its entirety.
Excellent.
Other than that, everybody, thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday and a great weekend coming up.
Oh, and I saw one just notification. So we'll put a link in, Matthew, for the project call RFP. It'll be in the chat momentarily. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.